right, don't mind me just sitting down in this hoodie I designed that you can also buy to help support the channel. You can go to beanified.com to check out the Ask the Mask collection as well as the Finches Get Stitches collection, all hand designed and illustrated by yours truly. I was not expecting Kirby and the Forgotten Land to be as fun as it is. I'm not super into Kirby games, but just from the looks of it, it seemed like something that was a little bit too linear for my liking, perhaps a little bit too easy. But for some reason, once I actually started playing it, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I actually rented the game at first because I didn't know if I'd actually like it, but I ended up liking it so much that I bought the full game anyway. So, and my favorite thing about it has definitely just been the copy abilities. I like just the wide variety of copy abilities there are and how each of them have their own upgrades to it. It's surprisingly in-depth for something as simple as Kirby, but perhaps all Kirby games are like this. Like I said, I'm kind of a Kirby new guy. I don't know much about Kirby. Basically, I've been really enjoying it, and I thought, wouldn't it be kind of cool if there was a trading card game that was based off the mechanics of Kirby and the Forgotten Land? I think there's a lot of elements inside the game that really lend itself to trading card game mechanics. And I figured, hey, I graduated graphic design. I could probably make a trading card. It sounds like fun. Never done it before. And I thought, what better fun than to do it with you guys here on camera? So, without further ado, let's make a trading card. The most experience I have with trading card games goes back to the Pokemon trading card game. I know when it comes to Pokemon cards today, you pretty much mostly just hear about opening booster packs and stuff like that, but I was actually a big fan of the base gameplay, and my friends and I would play all the time. I think the best thing for us to do with this Kirby game is base it off of those mechanics just because I already know them pretty well, but then dumb it down a little bit because what is Kirby if not something that's accessible for all ages and a little bit easier to understand? So my goal is Pokemon cards, but simpler. I am actually going to take this off because it's like 100 degrees out, but we also have tank tops if you're looking for something that's more in season. Okay, that's much better. In fact, you can actually see the design better from here anyway. So let's get started. So I got a blank document here that's the size of the average trading card. I googled the resolution to be sure. And similar to Pokemon, I think the first step is to make a colorful background. How the background color itself will change depending on the card, I've yet to figure out. I just realized something. My mouse is not showing up, isn't it? Let me fix that. Let's start with the green to keep it relatively simple. Now, I think it's important to have some kind of texture to the card. So what I'm actually going to do for that is use a custom brush. I say custom, but I'm actually going to use one that's already here. This like little leaf one. And then choose a darker green like so. I think I can just periodically place these. Yeah, like that. And then let's try one of these. And every 3 clicks or so, we just change it. It's okay if there's a little bit of overlap. I think what I'm going to do is have these be blurred out anyway. So now what I'm going to do, since this is its own layer, I can actually turn down the opacity. But also, I kind of like this linear burn. Okay, all we need to do now is go into filter. We'll go to blur, Gaussian blur, classic blur. All my homies love Gaussian blur. Only thing is I might actually experiment with making this a little bit bigger. I kind of like the bigger splotches better. And this is just the base. We can obviously change a lot of this later. But the next thing we're going to need to do is add a space for our character. Now, in Pokemon cards, they have a rectangle for showing off the Pokemon. I think because we're going with a Kirby theme, it might actually work if we go with a circular picture instead of a rectangle picture, just because most of Kirby is circle. So let's try that out. Let's grab our ellipse tool. Let's do default colors with no stroke. This is going to be a black circle. All right, we now have our measurement cube up here. Obviously, we're not going to keep it there for the final card, but just in case we need to measure things, like I'm going to do right over here just to quickly get a 0.5 inch from here. And I am now realizing that this circle is way too big. We don't have enough space down here. So what I'm actually going to do is shrink it. Maybe what I can do is actually shrink it to about half the size of the card. And we can figure that out through rulers. So I'm already noticing there's an awkward amount of space here, but I think we can deal with that okay. I think there's some information we could put right here. So next, let's actually add the picture I'm thinking. Now, beforehand, I've actually downloaded a lot of helpful Kirby pictures, which is awesome, and we'll just be plopping some of those in, courtesy of the Kirby wiki. I think it's called We Kirby. Either way, the link will be in the description, so you can check it out if you want to see where all these pictures came from. Let's just start with the Needle Kirby for now, because he seems like a relatively simple staple. What we're going to do is try to fill up the space a lot with him. I think what I really want to do with these cards is have a little bit more character overlapping the base card. So these spikes sticking out, I think it's actually going to be really good. I think it would almost be nice if we made it even a little bit bigger, but had his little feet cut off by the picture. I think anytime you have something that's partially overlapping and partially hidden underneath, it creates a little bit more of interest. So let's try that. But what we actually need to do is select the circle and turn it into a mask on this. So if I just have it selected and then hit Shift Control I to select everything outside of it, I can mask it pretty easily. And now if I make this disappear, as you can see, there's the hole. I just realized though that we actually still have this leaf going on. So what I'm going to do first is actually merge these two layers and then put the mask back on, and that'll fix it. We can always easily swap this base plate out later if we need to. For now, that's just our working design. I think already it's looking a little bit busy, so in the final product, I'll probably move it around, but for the sake of this video, that'll probably be okay. Now we've got our Kirby, and what we need to do is actually copy the Kirby to have one underneath as well. So now we have one Kirby underneath the base and one above it. So now that we have one above it, we can basically add a mask because we only want certain things showing. What's also worth mentioning is a lot of these renders have drop shadows in the back of them, and anytime you add two drop shadows on top of each other, it becomes more opaque. So if we make this disappear and make it reappear, those shadows become a little bit too harsh. I would have preferred to not have any shadows on them because I like to do all the shadow work myself. Sometimes life's not that easy. So what we're gonna do is actually add the same mask that we put on the base. We're gonna add it to the top one as well for starters. And what that's gonna do is basically say, hey, all this stuff inside this circle, we're not gonna count it. What we're also going to do is add to the mask. So if I click on the mask and go back to my brush, what we're gonna do is actually drag our brush right around here. Because like I said, we want to try to cut off his feet, okay? We're not feet people here, all right? We're getting rid of Kirby's feet. That's, I mean, no shame to you if you like the feet stuff. I'm just saying probably shouldn't like Kirby's feet because he's not a real object. I don't know what I'm saying, all right? Let's just eat veggies and make our beds. Eat veggies and make our beds. What we can actually do is, because there's a clear hierarchy of where these spikes are in the space, I think it might be cool to make this spike non-existent on the outside, right? But then also keep this one here, just because I think it will create a little bit of interest while also making sense. These ones are just simply higher up, so they appear through the card. Adding dimensions. I don't have to worry about my brush going over like this because there's already another layer in the background. So anything that I erase from the top layer is still going to exist in the bottom layer in this circle. So now we have that. Does that look good? I think that looks okay, yeah. One thing I'm noticing though is that this base card starts to look pretty flat on the edges. And I think one thing we could try is just adding an effect. I mean, I don't know. It looks kind of cartoony. Obviously, we would fix that up. I think, you know what? What if we beveled it? I don't think beveling is so much in fashion anymore, but when you're dealing with something as much as a legacy as like Kirby, I think you can kind of get away with some a little bit more dated design techniques. Plus a lot of trading cards that this is inspired off of, which is Pokemon, comes from really old design that has since been upgraded to be more modern, but there's still some of that sense of hey, we're using computer graphics to make this work. And that's what the kind of sense I get from Bevel, because it has that 3D edge. But I think we might be able to get it to work. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. I think that's an okay working design. I like the shine it adds to the top too, kind of a happy accident. And the shade at the bottom makes it just give it a little bit more dimension, which might be good. After all, we are talking about 3D renders from a 3D game. It only makes sense to have some kind of 3D representation in the design. So I think I like it. Since we already have the spikes going behind, I almost feel like now it'd be better to have the feet go in front. Hashtag feet first? I don't know. I don't know what that means. What can I say? I kind of like the feet. I think it just feels more popped out. And now that we have the spikes in the background that still overlap, I think that adds enough dimension to make it worth. One thing I am noticing though is that we have to start thinking about where we want to put the contents of the card, because right now this space is kind of occupied by the hat. We could go the route of Pokemon and just put it up here, in which case we would need to offset it by putting something over here. I forgot the L key doesn't work on my keyboard. Give me a second. Boom. Check that out. I still did that wrong. I don't know. It's kind of strange because a circle just feels way more center than like a rectangle. It's kind of harder to get away with a needle on the top left. I think it only makes sense to actually put it on the top. But now we're getting pretty close to the top of the card, which in the future might need some adjusting. But we're going to leave it for now. And what I'm actually going to do is just hide the top spikes. If you guys want to look at fonts, let's take a look at fonts. Let's see what we got. It just looks like kind of a fun font. I think this will be our working font. We might change it later, but we'll work with this one. I made this measuring cube and I just don't think I really need it, so I'm just gonna hide it for now. Okay, so now we need a place for it to have attacks because these things will have attacks. And I think the best way to do that is to create another rectangle that's above the base, just eyeballing it. How about that? Obviously, it's not going to be just black, though. I think actually a good way we could do this is similar to what we did with the leaves earlier. We could change this to a dark green, but also maybe apply a multiply. Yes, I like it. I think I like it. Yeah. So because we're going with white fonts, it's looking like that's the trend. We'll want a darker background for when we put a white font over it. So we can actually quickly drag this over. In Kirby, the spike ball turns into like a giant spike ball or whatnot. In fact, that's pretty much the only attack. So let's just say, actually, let's call spike. And then what we can do is actually have the second move, which everything would have at least 2 moves, I'd imagine. Dash spike, I guess, because he has this move where he like jumps towards people, right? I think that could work. Remember, guys, when you're doing non-destructive photo editing, things don't have to look perfect on the first try because you can always change it later. Okay, so if we're talking about simplifying, we could just ditch the whole, like, divisibles by 10 and just go with regular numbers. So let's just say this does 1 damage, right? Because this is a base card. It's a first level evolution. And the base attack is not actually that strong in the actual game. And then for the dash spike, what we can do is simply, we got to make it better. You know, they have a powerful attack and a weaker attack. Let's make it 2. Maybe dash attack can be 3. Or maybe it can be 2. I don't know. Now, in Pokemon, there's a very big part of the game called the energies, where you have to attach energies to a card in order to use certain attacks. Instead of energies in this game, I think we can simplify it and have just one energy source. That being, you know him, you love him, his name's Waddle Dee. Now, the reason I say Waddle Dee is because in Kirby in the Forgotten Land, Waddle Dees kind of help you do some stuff, you know. They're the ones who break open the gates. They also build equipment for you. They got a whole village of activities for Kirby, so it feels okay to have them kind of act as Kirby's slaves, basically. I think what we can do, if you figure 1 Waddle Dee is worth 1, and then 2 Waddle Dees would be worth 2, so we might just have to factor in exponential growth, basically. I understand that these Waddle Dees are probably too big. In fact, ooh, I think I like that. How about that? That's still, you can still count them too. That's pretty easy to tell, right? I don't know. We might change it in the future. Not destructive editing. We could do whatever we want. Okay, let's take a break from the attacks for now. And what we need to actually do is add some hit points to this, as well as a few other numbers. Now, playing around with the different copy abilities in Kirby, I was noticing some have a lot higher range, while some of them are a lot more mobile. And I thought that might be 2 factors that are good to include to spice up the gameplay a little bit. Speed and range. And I think the way this is going to work is that they're 2 very basic numbers, but if an attacking Kirby has more range than a defending Kirby has speed, then perhaps it does that much more damage in the attack. And I think that'll just make these copy abilities stand out from each other a little bit more, while also feeding true to the source material, because a lot of these copy abilities lend themselves to those 2 numbers. Now, how do we display these numbers? Well, as I mentioned earlier, I feel like these spaces right here are just a little bit too barren. One thing I want to play around with, I don't know if it's going to look good or not, but one thing I want to play around with is adding a rectangle that almost sits behind the circles. I'm not entirely sure what color to actually make this. I feel like because we're going to have different color background in the cards, we can't go with an actual color. We had to go with something between white and black, which means gray. So let's try just a light gray like this. The Kirby is kind of... We'll fix it in post. What I'm also going to do, though, is drag this mask that was also on the base and copy it to this rectangle. And now I'm like, maybe the foot has to get hidden. Maybe we could leave this one. Maybe we gotta hide this one. Gosh, I just keep cutting off Kirby's feet over and over again. But now it looks wonky having just one overlapping. We can always show the feet again later, okay? We can always show feet very late into our careers here. Definitely this mark is now looking a little bit flat though. In fact, let's make this stand out all the way to here. What we can actually do is copy over the same bevel effect that we put on the base, and I think that will help it right here. Ooh, yes. Yes, I think that's good. It might be a little bit intense. What if we turn it down just a smidgen? Just shrink that size to like right here. Yes, I like that a lot better. That's perfect. I'm also realizing we might need a different text for these two. It's time to introduce a body font. No. Ooh, you know what? This one just might work. Check out this font. I should mention the O keys and the several other keys are broken on my keyboard. I think that works well though. We'll keep it. I like it. Picasso. That looks kind of goofy, but we can make this bigger. Make it look less goofy. You guys are probably so frustrated that this L has been missing the whole time. Like I said, keyboard's broken. I'm sorry. I don't know. White or black? I'm not sure. Maybe we'll know once we have more, but non-destructive editing. Can we get away with just making it not overlap this? I think we can do that. I think we can do it. In the future, we'll try to be more mindful about where these overlap, but I think this will work okay. I just had a thought. What if we had one of these at all four corners? Will that work? I think its speed and range for the lower class should definitely be pretty low numbers. In terms of the needle, he does have a speed attack that goes pretty quickly, so I feel like 2 would be an okay for a speed amount. This is going to be weird. We're going to have to write it backwards, but I think the range is actually just 1 because homie's got to be touching with it, right? So in this case scenario, if one needle went up against another needle, the attacking needle would actually do 1 less damage because his range is lower than the other needle's speed. And if it's a tie, just no damage increase or decrease happens, basically. And you know what? I think I know what to do with this space right here. It's time to introduce another mechanic to this card game. Allow me to introduce you to types, or classes, I guess, might be a better word for it, because we're not trying to make it too similar to Pokemon. But this will act as types act in Pokemon, except for there's only 3 of them, because like I said, much smaller game. But what we have here is basically, we have the blunt class, the tactical class, and the magical class. I looked through all of the different copy abilities in Kirby, and they all fit into one of these 3 relatively evenly. The magic class is a little bit more stacked in terms of unit count, but 2 of them don't have a final upgrade, so I think it kind of balances out okay, possibly. And what I want to actually do is put these marks at the corner of the card up here. Where I got these icons are actually from Kirby Fighters 2. I'm only going to grab this one for now because it's the only one I need, but I'm going to soft select the negative space. Pretty simple. Hopefully there's not too many hiccups. These are relatively low res, but that's okay. I'm going to blur the heck out of them. But Pat, isn't that kind of a harsh mark on the card? Isn't it kind of distracting? Absolutely. What we can do is turn down the opacity. Already looking a lot better. But we can also add famous, say it with me, Gaussian blur. All my homies love it. I think that works okay. We want to make sure it's still noticeable though, because this is our indication that, hey, this is a blunt card. And the blunts will have some kind of advantage. I haven't figured out what yet against the class that's better. I didn't even really explain how the classes work, but basically, simple. Triangle. Blunt has an advantage over tactical. Tactical has an advantage over magic, and magic has an advantage over blunt. You got the triad, basically. Classic gameplay mechanic. I mean, this has been done a million times, but that's going to work well for our very simple card game. I'm starting to notice that these text colors should probably be white, I think, because it's looking too bland on the gray to have it be black. Let's make this attack have a description just for the sake of an example. Because Dash Spike is a little bit more range than regular, I think one power-up we could actually add is ignore range/speed disadvantages. Boom. Now I might be thinking, Pat, that's way off the screen. And I'd be saying, yeah, no duh, it is. Absolutely. For a body text, I think that's pretty good. Maybe that's a little bit big even. We could do a little bit smaller. How about that? There we go. I think that's some good readable text right there. Ignore range / speed disadvantages. 4. Ooh, messed that one up. I don't know. I kind of like it. I think it's okay. I think it's okay. Maybe we could play around with adding color to the speed and range, individual colors, so that they stand out a little bit more, and so that you kind of get a sense of like, oh, blue always means speed, red always means range, or something like that, and our eyes can recognize it pretty soon. But I think that's generally the idea. One last thing is we probably need a background behind this circle. I just realized probably could have had that a while ago. But I did download a dummy picture that we might be able to use. This is just a simple picture from the Forgotten Land. Obviously, Kirby's in it, and we don't want that to be shown, but he's really small, so it shouldn't be hard to crop him out of there. I think even just like that will be okay. Obviously, we're going to need to hide it a little bit. Maybe we could go with our best friend, the Gaussian Blur, too. Now, you could just imagine this for several other cards. The Needle alone has 2 more upgrades. So the idea is that you could play them onto your card once you have them. There also could be a mechanic of needing a blueprint card in order to evolve them, which would make sense with the game, but also I fear it might make it more complicated than it needs to be, so perhaps that's not necessary. I'm not sure. Some of the other cards would also include mouthful cards. I think they would act almost as items that you play onto your thing. For an example, Kirby, the famous Kirby, was actually called Carmouth, but Carmouth might increase the speed of your unit while it's in play. Maybe they each have their own hit points, and when someone attacks, once they run out of hit points, you discard it. So they're not there forever, but they're a helpful little item. I've got a couple ideas like that, and basically, theoretically, I have pretty much the whole idea of a playable game in my head. Whether or not that's going to amount to something, I don't know. I just thought it'd be fun to make trading cards based off the game. Let me know, for the love of whatever it is you love, let me know if you want to see more of this. Do you want to see this project continue? Genuinely. Like, is this something you'd want to see more videos on, where I make it more in depth, explain it, and maybe actually come up with a deck of playable versions? Is that something you're interested in? Let me know, because seriously, this is fun stuff. I like graphic design. I like making trading card games, apparently. I like gameplay mechanics, and I got to incorporate all 3 of those. So that's going to do it for this video, but there will definitely be more soon. If you guys would like to support me or my channel, then you can check out the merch link in the description, which is beunified.com. Again, all designed and illustrated by myself. Not really pertaining to the channel, just some fun designed and illustrated stuff. So you can get the Ask the Mask collection or the Fidgets Get Cinches collection. I appreciate you watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So long.